Hello and welcome to the Infinity Bros Podcast, the only podcast as perfectly balanced as all things should be. My name is Isaac Edlin. I am your host tonight, and I have one very special guest with me. It is Megan Nichole from the Vigilante Vibes Podcast. How are you doing, Megan? And welcome to the Infinity Bros Podcast.
I'm doing good. I'm really excited to be here. I've been a big fan of you guys for a while.
Wow, you're big fans of us.
Yes. I love all you guys do. I love how you guys always work together. I like how on social media you have no idea who you're talking to, but you all have the same cool energy. So that's always been something funny to me.
Yeah, appreciate that. Robbie and I are mostly manning socials, but every once in a while, Jarrett sneaks on there and I'll see one of our posts and I'm like, who posted that? That has to be Jarrett. Because he's the one that overtakes our socials and then we'll just post a bunch of Warhammer 40K stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea what any of that means, but I really appreciate Jarrett's take on all of it. So
I've seen that and I was like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I know. And
then we got him in the Warhammer 40K. Him and Robbie are both huge into Magic the Gathering, which I enjoy playing with them. Don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit over my head in terms of just enjoying it by myself. So I enjoy it casually with them. And that's probably where I'll stay at for the time being. I have dabbled my toes in a little Star Wars Unlimited, though, which is basically Star Wars version of Magic, which it's kind of cool. I like the collector aspect of it, getting all the cards and making decks and stuff. But Magic just seems so intimidating to me. I can't dive into it because I feel like I'm going to get lost.
It's like anime with me. It's there's so much there, and my fight or flight response is kind of kicking in a little bit. Don't do this. So I support whoever likes it.
Yeah, that's a great comparison because I feel the same way about anime. The few anime shows that I have watched, they're great. They're really good, but I feel almost cautious because I'm if I take this big step to get into anime, I feel like I will never come back from it.
I know. I've watched some Inuyasha, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, all those, and it's okay, those feel pretty safe. But then it just feels like it's weirder and weirder, and it's I feel like it changes you.
Yeah.
It changes you as a person.
changes you as a person for sure. So yeah, lots of fun stuff to get into. We're going to get into a few more other things here, but I want to welcome all of our new listeners, potentially some listeners of the Vigilante Vibes podcast. Welcome. Megan, would you maybe give a little bit of a snippet of what your podcast is about to the Infinity Bros universe for us?
Yeah, so I'm a non-toxic Marvel podcast. It's all the fun of the fandom without the racism, homophobia, sexism, all that gross stuff that's become rampant in all of the fandoms, really. So it's just kind of a safe space. I do give my honest opinions. A lot of times they are really negative, but it won't ever be because something is woke or because there's a race swap. It's never going to be something like that. But it's not just stopping at Marvel because I have guests, amazing, incredible guests I'm so grateful for from every fandom. So I'm also learning a lot about other fandoms as well.
Awesome. Yeah. We'll definitely be putting some links in the show notes so you guys can check out the Vigilante Vibes podcast and support Megan and them as well. So, Megan, there's one thing that I did not prepare you for that every guest on the Infinity Bros podcast must go through. It is our Infinity Gauntlet.
Are you a heel or a baby face? If you could make any flavor Cheez-It, what would it be? Is it pronounced Grogu or Groku? If Keanu Reeves isn't in the movie, can it be star-studded? It's time for the Infinity Gauntlet, here on the Infinity Bros podcast.
Don't worry, it sounds scary, but really it's just a series of random questions to get to know you. So
okay, I got a little nervous, kind of like when you go to the OBGYN, you're like, okay, what's going to happen?
I don't know what's going to go on here. So I've got a question from each. I don't have a question from every Infinity Bro, but from a few Infinity Bros, I have a specific question. And this is just to help us get to know you a little bit. I've never had to kick anybody off the podcast for not answering the questions sufficiently before. So I'm not suspecting that you'll be the first. So just have fun with it and answer to the best of your abilities, and we'll
just
make
have
it
fun. Just have fun. You might get boot it off. It's fine.
It's fine.
But
It's fine. And,
like
then
Loki,
we'll
just get rid of you.
Exactly. All right. So the first one here I have is from Infinity Bro Jarrett. He says, if you had to share an apartment with the X-Men, which era would you want as roommates?
Okay, halfway through that question, I was like, they're going to ask who I want as a roommate. And then you just threw them all out the window.
That's a curveball of a question. I think that's a pretty good one.
What era? Well, like in the X-Mansion or...
Yeah, we could say you could be in the expansion.
Probably the Krakoa era, right? I mean, you have the most diversity there.
You'd run into the least amount of problems with the Krakoan era.
Yeah, it won't last long. I mean,
yeah,
if
true.
It gets crappy, you're done.
True. There you go. All right. Next one here we got from Infinity Row Max. He says, this is kind of a long one, so buckle up.
All right.
Describe each of the following using a Christmas ornament. Max is getting into the Christmas season here. So I've got 4 characters. I'll repeat them again for you at the end of this. But Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, Cyclops from the X-Men, Batman, and Pikachu. So describe each of the following using a Christmas ornament. Emperor Palpatine, Cyclops, Batman, and Pikachu.
What does he mean? Like,
honestly, what I have learned to not expand any further. You can take this question however you want to. If you want to describe them as specific Christmas ornaments, go for it. Or however you want to interpret that, go for it.
Okay, so Emperor Palpatine. I'm gonna say he's the Christmas ornaments you have at the bottom of the box that are like cracked. Like you're kind of like, should I keep them? I mean, I've had them for like 3 years. Or sentimental value, that kind.
Yeah.
Cyclops, he is the Christmas ornament that someone buys you last Christmas that they gave you on Christmas Day, where you can only use it for like a day, but you like it so much, so you look forward to the next year of using it.
Okay.
It was Pikachu and Batman.
Pikachu and
you
Batman.
Said?
Yep. Pikachu and Batman.
All right, dark and brooding Batman. I'm going to say he's the tinsel. I know he's a dark and brooding kind of guy, but I just know he wants to be flashy and on the inside.
On the inside. Letting his inside Batman get out on the Christmas tree. Yeah.
Exactly. I just get it. And Pikachu is the shining star on top of the tree, because anyone that argues that with me, I'll fight you.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
My daughters would love to have a Pikachu on top of the tree. So I think that's a great option.
I think so too.
All right. Great answers there. This next one is from Infinity Bro Mark. If you could be in the MCU as a villain or a hero that we haven't seen yet, who would you play and why?
A villain or hero we have not seen yet. In the MCU, right? Just
in the MCU, yep.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Ghost Spider-Gwen.
Ooh, yeah.
Because she's dope.
She's awesome.
Awesome. Her newest comic run with Stephanie Phillips, dope. So good. I feel like she's highly underrated. And the Spider-Verse movies are the only reason people are really interested in her. Because she was just really a comic character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
But she is a huge deal in our house because my daughters love Spidey and His Amazing Friends. And we call her Ghosty. So Ghosty. I got to represent.
Nice. Yes. That's awesome. Love that. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and I also love Ghost Spider, so that's a great answer. Love it. All right, last one here. This one's from me. Kind of a reversal of that question a little bit here. So I know that you are a big comic reader and reviewer for Nerd Initiative as well. So if you had to bring a comic run into a live action like movie or TV series, what would you do?
Oh, House of M.
House of M, yeah.
Yes. And if I got like a saga of movies, I would say Blood Hunt event.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That would be interesting too. Yeah. House of M is such a big one that, like, I mean, eventually when we get mutants down the line in the MCU, it's going to be hard to stay away from that, even with Wanda's current whereabouts in the MCU, if she's even alive at this point. I just think they're going to come back to that at some point.
I think they're going to take parts of it and then, sprinkle it in a little what she's doing. I think they're going to use parts of it I think it's definitely going to be used to bring her and Billy together, like in the comics. So but that's also, like you said, it's such a big part that there's no way they're not going to.
Yeah.
But
right.
there's no way they can do it. Like, what? She's
Yeah,
going to say no more mutants? You're going to get rid of Kamala and Namor? Get out of here.
Yeah. They would, at this point, you would need a lot more build up for that moment to happen, I feel like. So they definitely will have to do it differently, which, they've been doing all along. The MCU has taken pretty decent liberty with the stories that they've adapted, which is fine for an adaptation of comic stories to the big screen. I think you kind of have to, in a way, because Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse movies are the best way that you can accurately portray like a comic book story or character, because like it looks like it is literally a comic book. When you get to live action, that's just not possible. Like, you just can't do that kind of stuff. So you need to adapt it to make it more realistic, and in the MCU, that's what they've done. And I feel like they've done a pretty good job of that. So
I think so too. And they've never claimed to be frame for frame from the comics. It's always been loosely adapted. The characters come from the comics, but they're not one-on-one with their comic book counterpart. And I love what they've done, because a lot of stuff can't be transferred over into live action without being silly. That includes comic accurate suits. That includes fight scenes. A lot of that can't be carried over. And people complain at the same time about CGI. So it's like, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to have bad CGI and give you live action comic accuracy? Or do you want to see something that transferred well?
Absolutely. That's the dilemma. Who do you please?
Yeah.
In the fandom. There you go. That's the last question that we have for you. You passed the Infinity Gauntlet.
Whew.
Congratulations, Megan.
I haven't been that stressed in a while. Oh, man.
You did it. Good job.
Thanks.
Now you can
put it on my resume.
Whew. Get that out of the way, and we can move on to other big things. So
Great.
All right. Next up, we have some nerd news.
Hey, Zane, I was looking into getting into this Gunpla thing. There's one called the Unicorn Banshee. What the heck is that all about? Actually, Jarrett, what you're thinking of is RX-0 Unicorn Gundam 2 Banshee, which is from the Mobile Suit Gundam. Actually, you know what? It's time for nerd news.
All right, we had a big box office. I am currently referring to the numbers for after Thanksgiving, so it's not the most current weekend, but big movies that have come out. Moana 2, Wicked, and Gladiator 2 all dropped Thanksgiving weekend, and it was an insane weekend for movies because just generally box office numbers have been down kind of ever since COVID. I feel like we haven't fully recovered from that. Some people just decided to stop going to movies, and that's just kind of how it's going to be from here on out. But over Thanksgiving weekend, a ton of people families came out to see Moana 2. So far, total gross, Moana 2 over 2 weekends now has made $225 million. Wicked has made $263 million, and Gladiator 2 has made $111 million. So over, $500-600 million in 2 weekends at the box office. That's total gross. So worldwide, but pretty insane numbers for 3 movies, which, even 2 movies these days in a weekend don't hit those numbers a lot of times. But for 3 movies to come out and do that kind of stuff, wow. Some big things happening. People really wanting to go see these movies. Were you able to catch any of them yet?
No, not yet. I want to see Moana 2 because I've been begging for another Moana for so long. But Wicked, I love musicals, but I have never been drawn to Wicked. And I'm not an Ariana Grande fan. I can't stand her. Oh, I can't stand her.
I'm with you on the Ariana Grande, but yeah. Wicked is a fantastic musical. I have not seen Wicked yet, but it also, this part for me, I thought was interesting. I mean, the stage play is probably, I don't know, 2.5 to 3 hour runtime or something. This movie is over 2.5 hours, and it's just a part one. Like, we're getting part two next year. So that, I thought that was going to drive some people away, but it is definitely not keeping people away from the theater to see the movie. So
No, and as much as I have to, I'm not interested at all. They have done some pretty amazing things with that movie. Like, the actors are actually singing live while they're doing their stunts. It's not a backtrack or anything. And they said they're doing that in support of the actors who are on Broadway doing it 8 times a week. I thought that was,
that's insane.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That is amazing. And then Gladiator 2 comes out with a sequel 15 years after the original, which Gladiator is another one. So we were talking on the Patreon version, which you can get on the link in the show notes, about Joker and how it was a movie that just did not need a sequel. Gladiator is one of those movies. Like, I love Gladiator. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Russell Crowe puts on an absolutely iconic performance, and then he dies at the end of the movie. It's pretty clear that Gladiator did not need a sequel.
Agreed.
But here we are. And granted, if I didn't have a family to take care of and I went to more movies by myself, I probably would go see Gladiator 2, because again, I love Gladiator. It's an amazing movie. It just, I don't know. Something about it is like, man, I don't know. I don't think this movie's going to be that great, but I still have to go see it. I want to go see it at some point, but haven't quite had the chance yet.
Yeah, I feel that way about the Sony Marvel movies. I'm like, I don't know. Still going to see it though.
In fairness, I kind of take the approach of those movies are just hilarious because they're so bad. So I still like seeing them.
Yeah.
Not because they're great movies and they're gonna, inspire me to to be great or anything like that, because they're so hilariously bad that I just enjoy them.
That's fair. That's fair. It's like Fast and Furious movies. Well, I mean, like,
yes, great.
The comparison. The ones after 4, after 5, I'd say the rest are just woo.
Yeah, they get progressively worse and more ridiculous. But like, I mean, we're all lining up to see Fast and Furious 15 or 17 or whatever they're on now, because it's just crazy. It's crazy. And Infinity Bro Max that's actually his like guilty pleasure, is the Fast and Furious franchise. And it's like, yeah, I think they're stupid, but you know what? I'm still going to watch them because they're fun popcorn flicks.
Yeah, it's good to have movies where you just kind of turn off your brain.
Yeah.
And go in and just I don't care. They're floating in space in a Honda CRV. I don't care. It is cool.
That is insane. When I saw the clip for that in the trailer for it, I was like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, this is a car in space? What the heck is going on?
And you still go and you're like, this will be the movie where they get back to drag racing. And it's not. But you're like,
no,
you kind of got to tell yourself, like, this is it.
They can't go back to drag racing. They just went to space.
Vin Diesel said he wants to go back to drag racing, and I mean, he just wants to make another movie, but like,
yeah, he just wants to make more money. Which, I mean, in fairness, I would want to make more money. So I get it.
I talk so much trash, but like, I do the same thing.
I would do the same thing. Yeah,
I would be driving a freaking minivan in Fast and Furious 87 when I'm 200 years old. Yeah, I'm making that money.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm 100% with you there. But luckily, none of these movies, hopefully, I guess I've only seen Moana 2, but hopefully none of these movies were like Fast and Furious 23. And people are loving going to the movie theater. I'm just going to give a quick non-spoiler review of Moana 2 since you haven't seen it. Don't want to spend too much time on it because we've got a couple other things to talk about. But Moana 2 was a good, fun, family-friendly flick. I would say it's really hard to measure up to the first Moana, honestly. Like, Moana's such a good movie, and the music is very iconic. I didn't come into this really thinking that Moana 2 is going to surpass it in terms of, like, either how good it is or, if I'm going to be singing the music from this one over the first one, and really came away from it thinking the same thing. Like it's fine, it's good. My kids really enjoyed it, but it's kind of falls into the Disney sequel trap of like, and actually I didn't even know this until after I had seen it the first time, but it was originally made as a animated series, and then they announced last year that they were gonna make it into a movie. And I didn't even know that until I had seen Moana 2. And after I saw it, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense after watching the movie.
Yeah, now they're doing a live action series, which is like, okay, you're doing the Toy Story thing.
And
you're milking it.
right. Moana just came out like, I think it was like 8 years ago. Like, it's not that old. And they're already making a live action? It just doesn't, like, it doesn't need to happen.
With Dwayne Johnson.
He's the reason they're making a live action, because he's the one driving that, I guarantee.
I know he is. I can't stand that man.
He's a businessman. So like we were saying with Vin Diesel, like, yeah, if you know you're going to make money doing it, it makes sense that you're doing it. But as a consumer, I am not the biggest fan of that idea. So
I'm not either. And it's like,
of course,
once
my
you
kids
start
will probably
milking
love it.
Yeah, my kids won't. They don't care one thing about Moana, so I failed somewhere.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
They like very, very certain movies or shows that move slowly. The characters are dimly lit. It's all a sensory thing. But
yeah.
So they don't watch Disney movies with me, and it's just it's like they look at me
time.
like
you got plenty of time, so
it's true, but I think I've missed it. I've already missed that part of where kids get obsessed because they know the names. They know everything about the characters, but they're just like looking at me with such disappointment, like, you're watching that again.
That's me with my kids when I turn on the football game. They're like, oh, Dad, I really have to watch football.
That's my kids with me right now. We're watching UFC 310, and they're just like, Really? You're never going to be them. You're never going to fight.
That's fair. That's why I'm watching it, because I'm looking back on the days that I maybe could have gone.
Right. I'm like,
definitely didn't.
My time's not over, you small little freeloader.
Yeah. I think you do still have time. My youngest is 1, turning 2 this month. She absolutely loves Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Like, those 2 shows are her favorite. And she actually got my older 2 to be interested in those shows. So we never ever watched Winnie the Pooh before we actually went to Disney this summer. And that's when she got obsessed with Eeyore. Eeyore is her favorite character for some reason. I'm not sure why. But
most
she
relatable.
Loves Eeyore. He is sometimes, yeah. But she loves Eeyore, and she loves the show itself. And then we watched it so much that my older 2 were like, oh yeah, we actually really like the Winnie the Pooh. So I tell that story because you still have time to get your
just
kids
got to have another kid.
Maybe.
But did you know that there has been like, I read about this in school, and I don't remember where I read it, but there has been like a study that why do kids like Eeyore? Because like on paper they shouldn't. He's not welcoming. He's not smiling, but they say it's because of his deep voice, because it reminds them of their dad. So they find comfort. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can
there
see
you go.
That. Okay, we got a little bit off track on that. I was talking about Moana 2. No, it's fine. That's like our podcast in a nutshell is getting off track. So we do that all the time. Moana 2, though, I think I would give it a score of 4 out of 6. It's still good. It's still a solid sequel. Not as good as the first one, in my opinion. There were a lot of reviews floating around online that they thought the story was better than the first one. I didn't think so. I thought the story moved really fast. And like I said, it felt like a TV show turned into a movie type of thing. So 4 out of 6, it was still pretty good.
I mean, for a Disney sequel, because there's Frozen, and the Frozen 2 kind of like fell off for me. So it's like, kind of expect it.
I think the music for Frozen 2 was way more, I wouldn't say more iconic than the first one, but like my kids still love the music for the second one as well. I don't think we're going to be listening to the Moana 2 soundtrack. I just, and part of that is this is something that I thought of during the movie. They did not hire Lin-Manuel Miranda, who didn't direct, but he scored the first Moana, and he's a musical genius. They did not have him on for Moana 2. So
Fumbled.
Obviously, yeah, I'm shocked. And I'm assuming that's because they were doing a series and maybe he didn't want a longer term commitment or something like that. I don't really know, like, all the details behind that, but man, they fumbled the bag with that one because Lin-Manuel is a musical genius and they needed him for Moana 2.
Oh yeah, the musical part of his brain should be studied for centuries.
It should be. Yeah. He is mind-boggling for sure. So yeah, it's all right. Not the greatest, not the worst though. It wasn't bad.
It didn't flop, and I'm good. That's really it.
Yeah.
It's a sequel.
It'll be a perfectly fine one to watch on Disney Plus. Like that's kind of how I feel about it.
That's not bad.
All right. Next thing I have for nerd news is, well, we're actually going to talk about this, so we're not going to spend too much time about it because we're going to review it later. But Sony released online the first 8 minutes of Kraven. And I wanted to talk about this in nerd news because I really wonder what their goal is with releasing the first 8 minutes online.
That I thought the same, because it's like, okay, first of all, that's weird, because why would you give us that? I know you're not that set in your ways that you think this movie is going to do good. You're not confident in it. We know you haven't been confident in anything you put out.
Yeah.
So why would you do that?
I don't. And I will say there is a trend of trailers becoming longer and longer nowadays. Like we usually nowadays, I mean, back in the day, like back before kind of the streaming age started, you'd get one trailer for the movie. And that was it. You saw it in movie theaters. Maybe you saw it, online, but they weren't frequently online at that time. But nowadays you get a trailer, a teaser trailer like a year before the movie. You get a full first trailer 6 months before, and then you get another full trailer like 2-3 months before the movie. Like by the time you've seen the movie, you've already seen like a good amount of the plot points. And these like final trailers are like 2.5 to 3 minutes long. They're like long trailers.
And that's not even counting the TV spots like every 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Deadpool and Wolverine had a huge trailer 2 weeks before the movie came out that spoiled a bunch. Multiverse of Madness spoiled everything in their trailers.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what's going on? Because I remember Captain America Civil War got one big trailer. Yeah. That's the one where they showed Spider-Man.
And we got, I always go back to this one. In Infinity War, they showed us this shot of all of the Avengers, including Hulk, in the shot, like purposefully misleading us, and that's just a marketing campaign, like ploy. And that's, ultimately it was a good move by Marvel. But at the same time, it's like, what are we doing here, guys? Like those days are long gone. And now again, we're getting these trailers that are basically showing us the whole movie before we see it. And now Sony chooses to release 8 minutes of Kraven. I don't know. This is a mind-boggling move to me. And I don't think it necessarily hurts them because I think this movie is going to bomb anyways. So I don't know what their thought is on releasing these 8 minutes. I just don't get it.
I will say I have never seen the actors in a Sony Marvel movie push so hard for their movie. Aaron Taylor Johnson has been speaking his gospel all around town saying, I think people need to see it. I think it's different. I think you'll be surprised, which is a whole world different than Madam Web, where Dakota Johnson was like, if you want to see it, I mean, you can. I didn't tell you to see it, though.
So their marketing campaign for Madam Web was wild. It was... I was mind boggling. I know. I felt bad for them. And then like Dakota was literally like, I've never seen a Marvel movie and I don't care. Like she just like openly, I don't know if disregard is the right word, but she was so flippant about like how she didn't care about this movie at all. And it was
Well,
just like, what the heck is
I
going on?
think by the time the press tour happened, we all know that she and Sydney Sweeney were tricked in thinking that it would merge with Marvel Studios. That was pretty obvious when her and Sydney tagged Marvel Studios when it was released about Madam Web. So that's on them and Sony, not just Sony. You have lawyers. So I think by that point she was pissed. She's like, this isn't going anywhere. I've seen the movie. It blows. Look, this is my honest truth. And I can't even be mad at her for that.
Yeah. It was it was not good. But yeah, this is the thing that I just wanted to talk about and get out in nerd news, because Sony has been a marketing just bomb. I feel like they have not marketed things well. They have, I will give them credit, because there are platforms out there. Apple TV is the one comes to mind. They actually make really good shows, decent movies, but they have zero marketing, like almost no marketing. But here we have Sony, and they are marketing, but they're just putting out these horrible movies. It's just fascinating to me. And I really wonder how this all plays into kind of the end game, if you will, of the Marvel Sony universe. Because I mean, they've been holding on to the Spider-Man IP along with all of these villain spin-offs that we're getting for years and years and years, ever since back to Tobey Maguire. You know, they produced those movies, retained the rights when Marvel, they basically were like, they didn't care about the rights to all the other Marvel properties, so they let Marvel Studios kind of go shopping around for, you know, whoever was going to make them. Paramount caught on, eventually, you know, sold to Disney, blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. But the movie theater box office returns have just been dwindling for all of these movies. And this is not going to change for Kraven. Kraven's not going to do well at the box office. I feel like they probably do have enough box office capital with Venom franchise to keep going, unfortunately. But I just, what is the end game for Sony? Like, when do they decide, yeah, this isn't profitable for us anymore, let's sell the Spider-Man IP to Disney for $5 billion? Like, Disney would probably pay $5 billion at this point for the Spider-Man IP. So when do you think that's going to happen?
I think it's going to happen sooner than we think, because you have to think, what's after Kraven? Nothing. The El Muerte, that movie was canceled. There's nothing.
Thank goodness.
Thank God, man. Dude had like 3 pages in the comics. What are you playing off of here?
What are we doing here? Like, there's so many other, like, Spider-Man has one of the best rogues galleries in comics.
Yeah, next to Batman,
and you're making a Bad Bunny El Muerte movie? Like, what are we doing here, guys?
But like, at the same time, I'm like, when they said, I was like, thank you for not hurting any other characters I care about.
That's true. Good point.
So I think it's coming sooner than we think, because we haven't heard anything else on their production schedule about a Spider-Man-esque movie.
Right.
And Tom Hardy keeps saying he wants to come back as Venom, but he's done as Venom. And they said, like, Venom's not done. Mm-hmm. But Tom Hardy is. So what are your plans here? Plus, we have the next Spider-Verse movie, which I hope and think that it's going to be the merging of the MCU with Sony. I think that's the smartest way to do it.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, because there's nothing between now and then besides Kraven. So what else could they possibly do? But going back to their marketing, the thing I hate about them is that there are parts in movies that you can tell were only filmed to be in the trailer. Morbius, I'm looking at you, and your first scene where you're in a cave had nothing to do with the movie, but all to do with the trailer. So
absolutely. They definitely are playing to what they think the audience wants, and it is not working out for them.
No, it's not, because we want to see these characters with Spider-Man. Stop doing what you're doing. And if you're care so much about Spider-Man, Give us Andrew Garfield.
Oh, I would love to see Andrew Garfield back. That'd be amazing.
Oh my God, I know. He's just so lovable.
And
He's so cute.
with all the stuff, granted, this does not sound like a good idea, but if you, for whatever reason, felt like you needed Spider-Man, I mean, give Tom Hardy's Venom Andrew Garfield as a Spider-Man in his universe, because that would be, I mean, Tom Hardy is a great actor. He's the only reason those Venom movies work, in my opinion.
True.
They're not good movies, but again, they're good like popcorn flicks. Like I enjoy watching them for what they are. To have Tom Hardy and Andrew Garfield play off each other, I think would be an interesting dynamic. Now, would I want to see that because I think that would potentially extend Sony's reign on the Spider-Man IP? Probably not.
Yeah.
But
true.
At the same time, I would love to see Andrew Garfield back in some capacity as a Spider-Man from some multiverse. Hopefully we see that in like Secret Wars, down the line with the MCU or something like that. But Andrew Garfield, I feel like, got a lot of crap as Spider-Man when he definitely shouldn't have. It wasn't his fault that his Spider-Man movies were, I wouldn't say they were bad. They were subpar.
Popcorn flicks.
Mm-hmm. Popcorn flicks. That's a good term for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be interesting to see. I think it would be cool to give Venom something to, I always think of that post-credit scene in, was it Let There Be Carnage, where Spider-Man was on the TV, or maybe that was No Way Home. Was that No Way Home?
It was No Way Home. It was in the MCU.
Spider-Man was on the TV and Venom like kind of had a reaction to him. And I'm like, see, like that's how it was meant to be. Like Venom and Spider-Man are kind of like, I mean, there's a little bit of a pun in there, but there's a symbiotic relationship between Spider-Man and Venom. And by himself, Venom is just, look, I love Venom. I've got like some Venom stuff up behind me here.
Yeah.
But without Spider-Man, Venom does not work. So we need him back in the MCU where he belongs.
I agree completely. And Tom Hardy, he does what he can with those movies. I really do enjoy the first Venom. But then I guess Sony was like, oh, she liked the first one? Let's piss her off. And made the second one. So I took that pretty personally because like Venom is such a cool character and the other symbiotes are so cool. Like the Venom War comics have been a fun ride. And those involve Spider-Man too because they are so connected. It makes no sense to me why Sony just wants to piss us off like this. It's just bullying and it's not right.
I found somebody in you that I can share my love of Spider-Man and dislike of the Sony Marvel Universe. So appreciate that.
I appreciate that too. It's been lonely in these streets.
It sure has. All right. So that's what we got for nerd news. We're going to be talking about the first 8 minutes of Kraven in a few minutes here. But first, we are going to be reviewing Skeleton Crew. The first couple episodes dropped last week. And so we're going to be talking about that a little bit. First, before we dive into that, we are going to be rating and reviewing the next few things. So we're going to give our rating bumper right here.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an Infinity Step.
And then we're probably going to be doing some non-spoiler reviews right off the bat. So we'll give a spoiler warning at the time when we dive into those. But Skeleton Crew, this is a Disney Plus exclusive series that just dropped on the, let's see, what is today? It was the 2nd, I believe. Episodes 1 and 2 dropped on the 2nd. I wouldn't say there's a lot of big names in this. We got Jude Law, who just popped up in the end of the 2nd episode.
Yeah.
Other than that, like a lot of new names. So I'm excited about the new cast. Maybe let's start us off with like just a quick 60-second, like non-spoiler. What did you think of the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew?
I thought it felt very Star Wars. It's had the vibe all through it, but I thought it was really cute. I love the new characters. I hope the internet is kind to them because they know what position they're in. But I thought it was really nice. I think the characters work really well off each other. It's very compelling. I didn't know what to think when I was diving into like a kid's Star Wars show, but I was pleasantly surprised.
I'm absolutely with you there. And I think the comparison it has gotten online is to Goonies, like kind of like
Yeah.
that fun adventure type of vibe. And I definitely think it's fulfilling that through the first 2 episodes. I just think that Star Wars at its core should be for kids. Like you watch those original trilogy, obviously there's some mature like themes in there and stuff like that, but I watched those as a kid, and I would say there's definitely some deeper themes that you can dive into, but like I understood pretty much everything that I was watching, right? Like
Hmm.
as good as some Star Wars is, that is a little bit deeper and definitely made for adults, kind of referring to Andor, which is one of my recent favorites. I think at its core, Star Wars is best when it is geared towards kids. And this is a perfect example of this. I mean, I would watch this with my kids. It's fantastic so far. Star Wars production is always great. I think the story is where some people have been, giving it crap in recent years, as we have seen with The Acolyte, with the most recent Star Wars show. And so far, this story, I find no problems with it. It's really fun, it's engaging, and I'm excited to see where all these characters go next.
I agree. I also think people, Star Wars fans, certain ones, have to come to the realization that Star Wars isn't growing with you. It's growing as a franchise. So it wants new watchers, it wants to appeal to new audiences. I mean, you're going to get sick if it's the same vibe for every Star Wars show.
Mhm.
They should branch out like this.
Absolutely. And the thing that I've been harping on through the last, I don't know, basically 2-3 years of Star Wars is the fact that we're getting so many different Star Wars shows. I will say it's maybe a little bit of content overload, but the Star Wars universe is huge.
Yeah.
It's not like the MCU where we're on Earth and we only have so many stories to tell. Like you could take any corner of the Star Wars universe and create a story from scratch in there. Like I think there's so much room to tell stories that all of the content that we've been getting, I just love that we're exploring so many different areas of the Star Wars universe. So this is another one of those areas. I mean, we'll get into spoilers in a little bit and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but I'm really enjoying the beginning of this series.
It's cute. It was almost wholesome. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, wholesome. That's a good word for it. Yeah, it just,
Yeah.
again, like this is stuff like, I've referenced Andor before. I love Andor. It's such a good show, but I would not watch that with my kids. Like that's dark. It's gritty. It's a area of the Star Wars universe where kids don't belong. And that's fair because there's a lot of areas in the Star Wars universe where kids probably don't belong.
Yeah.
But there's also areas in the Star Wars universe where they should be. And this is one of those areas. So I'm very excited about it. So let's give a spoiler warning here. We'll dive into spoilers.
This is
Prepare yourself.
an Infinity Bros
Prepare yourself.
spoiler warning.
All right. So we obviously have this group of kids that, and this is the Goonies vibes that I'm talking about. You get the group of kids and they accidentally are, going on this adventure. Episode 2, they press the button, start up this big old starship and shoot into hyperspace. Neil, the little, I don't even know what his species is called, but like he's like an elephant looking thing and
Yeah.
he's the cutest thing ever. And I would die for him.
I was about to say, first of all, I would die for Neil. I would take a bullet for him. It was on the tip of my tongue, and I was waiting for a lull, and then you said it. And,
I'm sorry. I stole your phrase. I'm sorry.
We had a moment there where we were connected.
Yeah. Neil is by far my favorite character so far. Just like most of these kid shows, you have the reckless kid, and then you've got the friend who is a really, really good friend, but they're also like love their family and are concerned about like, their life and stuff like that. That's just it's just amazing because he's like wants to be a good friend. He's tagging along with all this stuff that he's doing, but he's also like, I want to get home. I want to go see my brothers and sisters.
He's what I would want my kid to be. I want my
Yeah.
kid to be him. I want you to be a
Yeah.
good friend, but I want you to care about your family more and get yourself home safe. I don't want you to
Yeah.
be the little rascal clicking buttons everywhere.
Exactly. Yep. There you
Yeah.
go. And now we, like you said, we're out in space. We get that pirate. This is another like kind of cool aspect of Star Wars, which we get a little taste of in The Mandalorian. We have one episode in The Mandalorian where they have this like pirate crew that they're like escaping, and the pirate vibes, space pirates. We got space pirates in Star Wars. I'm just so happy that I'm alive during this era of Star Wars right now. Like space pirates, Goonies in space. Can't get much better than this, honestly.
It had really good Ravager vibes, like Guardians of the
yeah.
Galaxy Ravagers.
Yeah.
Just found Star-Lord about to eat him up. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like.
Well, and like, okay, so this is just the parent in me. So like these kids like are on this spaceport or whatever, you know, with like all sorts of untrustworthy characters.
Yeah.
There's so much worse things that could happen in this situation. That's what I'm thinking when I'm watching this episode. I'm like, ooh boy, like what's gonna go on here? They throw all the kids in a prison cell.
Which is
the
like
worst that happens.
That's like the best thing you could do, though. No
I
one knows
know,
where they're
right?
from.
Exactly.
No one knows they can't help them one little
Uh-huh.
bit. Lock them up somewhere. No one can get in. They can't get out. Good idea. Good parenting stuff there.
Yeah, good parenting stuff. Like, and again, this is like why I said before, I'd watch this show with my kids so far. And you know, obviously, I don't get screeners to the whole season, so I can't tell you for sure this is a family friendly show. But through the first 2 episodes, it is so far, and I'm excited about that because I like watching Star Wars with my kids. They don't like it yet. The same vibes with you and the Disney movies as me and my kids with Star Wars. Like I'll watch all the Star Wars with them and they're just like, Dad, why are we watching this? I'm like, because you are going to love it some point in your life. Maybe it's not now, but someday you will love it. Or I guess I'll just be watching it alone as an old grumpy man later in life. So who knows?
That's what my dad told me when I was little. He was like, "You're gonna love it someday." And here I am, like, I mean, they're cool. Okay, Dad. But then he said the same thing about Iron Man, and I was like, okay. Oh, there's some parenting I can look up to.
Yeah. You know, I will say I have not dove super deep into it, but I have read some incredible Star Wars comics, and I know they're out there. So
yeah,
there is a nice universe of I mean, they call it in Star Wars, they call it like Legends, where basically pre-Disney, all of the canon or non-canon, you know, lore and literature. There's a crap ton of Star Wars novels, which I don't read that much, so I haven't read very many Star Wars novels, but there's a ton of them. There is a ton of comics, and then when Disney bought Star Wars, they kind of like were like, hey, that all that stuff is called Legends now. That's all like non-canon. And then from here on out, everything is canon because we own it. We're creating, sanctioning everything that is being created in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And some of the comics that they have made post like Disney purchase really have been really, really good. So I would recommend getting, especially the Darth Vader comics. I've read a few of those and they're very, very good.
I've heard good things about the new one, Star Wars: The Battle of Jakku.
Yeah,
Republic
I've been
Understood.
hearing about that one. I haven't read that one either, but it looks very good, and I would be very interested to read it.
I think the 4th one comes out this week on Wednesday. You guys can also read them on Marvel Unlimited.
Yes. Do they still have their deal going? They had a Black Friday deal going on.
They have a deal every month. They're about to have another one. It's Christmas, then New Year's. They always do.
Marvel Unlimited is a fantastic deal for those of you guys who do
Agreed.
not have it. It's a very, very good deal. A ton of comics, and for new comics, what is it like a 3-month drop or something like that? 3 months after they release, they're usually on Unlimited.
Yeah, something around. I know I think it's too far of a difference for me because it's like 3 months, man. Like give them at the most a month. It's wild.
Yeah, that would be nice if they had that. And that's honestly what deters me from reading current comics is that, number one, if I bought comics, I would just be spending way too much money because I would want to get into
Yeah.
so many different runs.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest deterrent for me is I usually am just like, I'm just going to wait for this run to be done. Then I'll buy the trade paperback or read it on, Marvel Unlimited or whatever. So a little bit of a bummer. I would like to get into more current stuff, but can't go wrong with the classics and the trade paperbacks either.
That's true. Plus, some people don't live by a comic store. Mine, closest
True.
one's over an hour away.
Yeah.
So, like, luckily I get them all. Like, I could just read them and review them. So,
yeah,
there's
Infinity
that.
Bro Jarrett, I mean, he lives in Montana, so like his nearest comic book store is like 4 hours away or something like that. So,
Oh, Lord.
yeah, Montana is just the wild, wild west out there. It's just,
I think this is it's a good example of like comics should not be only sold at comic stores. Like,
yes, exactly.
put them somewhere else. I don't
Man,
care.
let's get
Walmart,
back to
Target.
the days where we had like comic books at grocery stores in the magazine rack,
Yeah.
like that those are the good old days. I always used to pick up like Archie comic books at the grocery store.
Oh, I did too. Yeah.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
times.
like it makes sense. You want more people to read comics. Why is it exclusively for comic stores when most towns don't even have one? Like we just
Yeah.
got one
Mhm.
like 3 months ago. There's no other
Wow.
ones.
That is sad. We used to have one in my hometown, and it went out of business even before I was out of high school. Which that was a long, long time ago now. But yeah, that was even before. I mean, like COVID, before all the things that were true like hardships on small businesses and stuff like that. Yeah, small towns. It's tough to get that much business to make it worth keeping a store around. And actually our local game store just went out of business not too long, and they didn't carry comics, so it wasn't that much of a difference for me. But like still to have a local establishment like that like available to you makes such a big difference
Yeah.
in what you have accessible to you and what you actually will and won't end up reading. So
It's true. And it's like you have GameStops everywhere. Why can't they just add comics to GameStops?
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Because, like, I understand there's comic stores and, you want to support them. I totally get it. But, like, there's not enough of them to be able to do that, to rely on them.
Yeah,
That's my soapbox moment.
there you go. I'm with you. I'm there clapping, cheering you on when you're on your soapbox.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing I wanted to mention is the last 2 minutes of episode 2. Jude Law finally shows up and he is in the cell with them. It's again, just like so much Goonies vibes. He like comes out of the shadows. He's in this like dark like robe and shroud. And then he like does his Jedi thing and like everybody's like, oh, he's a good guy. It's just like, oh my gosh, I love it. I will say it definitely plays on some of those tropes that you're like totally expecting. And I'm okay with that. As somebody who's nostalgic for that type of thing, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I think just because it's a trope doesn't mean it's bad. Like, it
Mhm.
fit. I think we all were like, okay, he's going to get the key with his mind. He's going to use the Force. I think we all knew it.
Even when
then
he
when he
steps
did-
out of the shadows and is like, oh yeah, the big
Yeah.
bad guy, you're like, oh yeah, he's definitely the good guy right now.
Yeah, he might be a bad guy later. I don't know.
Yeah,
But we were
maybe.
all definitely like, all right, he's in this situation. He's like
Mhm.
the beam of light for these kids. He's going to use the Force. And it fit well. It's a kid show. It made sense.
I will mention too, all of the child actors so far have been doing a great job.
Yeah.
I think there are definitely instances where the child actors just probably are not coached well when they're in movies or series or whatever. They're just maybe don't like fit their role correctly, and the director is not doing a good job of like coaching them to what they want. But all of these kids are convincing. They're doing a great job. I'm pretty happy with the casting of the show so far.
Yeah. I think Fern, the girl who plays Fern, does phenomenally.
Yeah, she's really good. Like we said, we already mentioned that we're going to die for Neil.
Yeah.
Wim is a very good, kind of the opposite side of Neil, whereas we talked about Neil being the good kid who wants to get home to his family. Wim, I mean, he definitely loves his dad, you can tell in the first 2 episodes, but he's the guy who's just like craving adventure and is willing to sacrifice his future, which, obviously it's tough for him as a kid to see that this test that he's taking is his future. But he's like, you know what? I'm on this cool adventure. I don't care about that anymore. I'm just going to go, try to find this Jedi temple. I love that he assumes it's a Jedi temple. Like he just sees a big like metal thing and that's a Jedi temple, obviously.
It's such a kid thing, though.
It
like,
is such a kid
it's
thing.
a Jedi temple. Don't even try to talk me out of it.
Yeah, exactly. When he tells his dad in that episode, it's like, oh, okay, Jedi temple. Like, all right then, buddy.
Yeah, I liked his character because it's such a kid. Like he's not crying that his dad's never involved or his mom's not around. I guess she died. Dude's just he is disassociated with real life so hard. He's like, there's a Jedi temple out there. Screw this test. And you're like, that is a child. They did well.
Exactly. They did well. Exactly.
Yeah.
Last character that I'd like to mention, SM-33, is the droid that shows up on the ship that takes them into hyperspace. He assumes that Fern is the new captain, and SM-33 is going to be my favorite character. I can tell already. I mean, besides Neil. Neil is up on his own like pedestal. Like we're everything below that though. SM-33, gonna love him.
I don't think he assumed. She said, I killed your old master. I'm your and he was like,
It was more of like a
okay.
transfer of like
Yeah. He was like,
know,
okay, girl,
of
dang.
title for sure.
Yeah. It was I liked how that was handled because I was like, that's my kind of girl right there.
Yeah, stepped up
taking action.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw her, kind of do that earlier as well, just like kind of being confident and saying those things, obviously not truthfully for some of those things, but hey, she's confident. And her character is going to be really fun to watch, I think, through the rest of the series.
I think so too. I like their dynamic. You have the brainiac, the sensitive one, the unhinged one who just wants adventure, and then you have her who's just not dealing with it.
Yeah. Become the de facto leader because nobody else is stepping up and she's willing to. So
yeah, I mean, she might as well. I mean, go for it.
And then SM-33 assumes that she is the captain and he's the one basically guiding them on this adventure to the spaceport and hopefully beyond, because I love that he's a pirate droid. Like that I love the pirate vibes. And then the fact that he's a pirate droid, like, I mean, how much better can this get? I just love it. It's fantastic.
It is. And I feel like he's going to be such an important character because when he said, don't trust anyone, I was like, what do you know?
Yeah.
And was Jude Law the old captain?
That would be interesting. That's a great question.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, it's a trope, but like, I like tropes. I don't know. I think they're cool.
Yeah, tropes are fun.
Yeah.
As long as they're used correctly. I feel like when they get overused just for the sake of being a trope, then yeah, they get old.
Sometimes they're used in a lazy way just to get out of like being more complex, but it's a kid's show. It should be tropes.
I fully agree with you there. All right, let's give our ratings here. If you want to just go ahead and give your rating for both episodes 1 and 2 together so far, what would you rate this out of 6?
I'd say a 5 out of 6.
I'm right there with you. So far, 5 out of 6. Great premiere. Excited for more. And I think I was excited for Acolyte because they promoted it as this really different story that we hadn't seen in the Star Wars universe. And I definitely think it didn't live up to the expectations that they placed on it. But this one has potential, I feel like, to really get people reinvested in current Star Wars. It's just got fun vibes. Like I said, up to this point, family friendly. You can get the whole family in on it. I'm excited about this show.
I think it's going to be a sleeper, kind of like Miss Marvel series. Like everyone's like, who asked for this? It's for kids. But then like when you watch it, you're like, okay, well, like just because it's for kids doesn't mean it's bad.
No. And they got way deeper in Miss Marvel than I expected them to. Like, Miss Marvel's a great character, but they went into that whole family aspect and it was like, holy crap, like this is not what I was expecting.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be a sleeper of a show. I think by
Yeah.
the end of it, we're going to be like, well, we want more. I want to grow up with these characters now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Maybe we get multiple seasons if it's successful and people are loving it. So who knows?
I don't have much hope when they say multiple seasons because Star Wars just silently cancel it. Like, I guess screw the Acolyte. I didn't watch it, just so we're clear. But the day before they canceled it, they had an entire setup at D23 for it.
That's the insane part to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, the ending of Acolyte. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the ending of Acolyte sets up for a season 2.
Yeah.
You can't just cancel a show because now we're left with more questions than answers because we're not getting a season 2. And granted, I think I rated the Acolyte like a 3.5 out of 6. Like, it's definitely on the lower side of the recent Star Wars like Disney stuff that has come out, but it still wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad show. It got a lot of crap for the whole, woke side of things that it shouldn't have. The reason the Acolyte wasn't successful is because the story was messy.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to story, I mean, that's just where it's going to fall apart every time. If you can't make a cohesive story, people aren't going to hop on it and really enjoy it as much as they should. So
Plus, it was coming off the tail end of the excitement of Ahsoka, which was wildly loved. And I feel like if a franchise has a project that's connected to the bigger picture and they cancel it, then you need to canonize that from the overall story because you cannot just leave
true.
people hanging. That is so rude.
And I mean, so this is a spoiler for you. I'm assuming you don't care that much.
I'm good. I love I actively look out spoilers. I'm
You're
good.
that person.
I love
That's
them.
Infinity Bro Max on our podcast. He's always shooting us links to like stuff that's like spoilers. I'm like, Max, we don't want to
Oh,
know.
I don't. I have like a spoiler chat where I have some friends and I'm like, look,
Give me
guys, here's
all
the
of
ending of the Joker, so we don't have to see it. But I love
That's funny.
spoilers. Deadpool and Wolverine, I knew every single thing going into that.
Really? You did, huh?
I love it. Hypes me
Wow.
up.
All right. Hey, if that works for you, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is a little snippet of Darth Pelagius, which in Star Wars lore is a huge deal because we don't see him at all in any like film, TV, or anything. He's mentioned one time in the prequel series, but I mean, there's a decent amount of lore about
Mhm.
him, and it's pretty interesting stuff. And we get like a little 2-second clip of him,
I
and
remember
then
this, yeah.
the season is canceled, and you're like, no, you can't drop him and then cancel the season 2. Like, yeah, it wasn't that great, but you can't not give us a season 2 now. Come on.
Yeah, I remember that. It was all over the internet and I was like, I'm happy for you guys. Someday I'll join you in this, but not today.
There's a lot of stuff to get down to with that. Like, that's even I'm a big Star Wars guy. I've watched all of the, any film, TV media that's available. I've seen, like I said, I'm not a big reader, so I haven't read a lot of novels, but like I've read a decent amount of Star Wars comics as well. But like, yeah, Darth Plagueis is like a legend in Star Wars, and you can't just like name drop him, face drop him for 2 seconds, and then just like cancel it. You just can't do that. This is really disappointing.
There were people, the hashtag Save the Acolyte is still trending.
It's still
So,
trending, and
yeah.
I would rather, even though I wasn't a big fan of season 1 because of the story, I would rather they finish it out
Yeah.
and, give us a complete story than just canceling the whole thing. Like, come on, man.
And it seemed like a cancellation on such a whim. Because like I said, they had a whole setup for it at D23.
Mhm.
Like they had people there dressed in costume. They had a whole thing. And then they're like, psych. And the same day Disney Plus was still telling people, go watch The Acolyte. And it's like, why would they do that? Why are you doing that? I feel like it was
Insane.
just someone was like, just do it. It's fine. It's fine. They'll be fine. Everyone will be cool. Just cancel it.
Luckily, Skeleton Crew does not look like it's heading in that direction. So go watch Skeleton Crew. It's great.
Yeah, it's really fun.
All right. Next thing we're going to talk about a little bit. Well, you kind of already talked about it, but we're going to get into those first 8 minutes of Kraven. Coming into this 8 minutes released online for some inexplicable reason, we already had a trailer for Kraven that was about 2.5 minutes long. And I'm going to be honest, from that trailer, this movie looks like a generic action movie. And these first 8 minutes did not dissuade me from that thought at all. It's pretty much your generic action movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, it moved very, very fast. Those 8 minutes, like a lot happened. And I was like, did you give us that 8 minutes because it really has nothing to do with the overall story? And you didn't want to get, kind of
That's
lit
an
up
interesting
for,
thought.
yeah, because it kind of lit up when the movie starts, when they're like, okay, well, the first few minutes don't make sense.
Taking the Morbius approach with that, I guess, huh? Just doing something for looking cool and trailer
Yeah.
appeal.
I will say Aaron Taylor Johnson does really well with the Russian accent. I don't know. There's 2 movies that he does a Russian accent in and somehow is a Marvel character. It's not a lot, but it's still twice. And that's a lot to happen.
It's not a lot, but it still happened twice.
Yeah.
Kind of wild. I will say I like Aaron Tyler Johnson as an actor. I think he's a good actor. I think that this movie has a chance to be watchable in the same sense that like Tom Hardy made Venom watchable. It's not going to be probably as good as Venom, but I think Aaron Tyler Johnson is a good enough actor to make this movie not suck. If that makes sense.
I think it's going to go back to what you said. It's a generic action movie. So, like, I think people be like, as a generic action movie, it was good.
Mhm.
As a Spider-Man character, I don't know. But they're definitely playing on the
Oh.
Spider-Man thing. Like,
Mhm.
Just Kraven, spider crawling up a wall. That was a choice.
Yeah, that was a choice. Yep. There's going to be plenty of choices in this movie, probably. And most of them are not going to be good. It's
No.
yeah, man, I don't have much else to say than I did before this 8 minutes, which I feel like if you're releasing 8 minutes of your movie online, you should have something more to say about it. Maybe?
Yeah. I
I don't
should
know.
leave it with a different impression. Because
Right.
it's pretty popular. Not, I guess not popular. It's widely accepted that it's gonna suck.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I
it
think the
really
first
is.
8 minutes should have showed us, okay, wait, maybe there's something there. But I still left like, okay, I mean, I'm still gonna see it, but like, what am I gonna see? Because I still don't know.
Yeah. And this is Craven is another one where it's like, I mean, you kind of mentioned it before, like the El Muerte thing. Like, yeah, they're not ruining another good Spider-Man villain with El Muerte. Craven is a good Spider-Man villain. And
Yeah.
so that part of it kind of sucks. If we just disassociated this character from the whole Spider-Man IP and we didn't know that it was going to be, related in any way, which I mean, obviously it can't be like contractually. I don't even think they can say Spider-Man in it. But if we knew that it was completely disassociated and like he had a different name or something, maybe I would enjoy this movie. But the fact that they are potentially taking a good Spider-Man villain and making a crappy movie of it it just irks me. And it's going to make me view this movie in a different light because it's making me mad.
I get it. The one thing I do appreciate is that they're not leaning on the Spider-Man thing like they did with Morbius when I think there was a whole poster of Spider-Man in the trailer. And then Madam Web where we see Ben Parker and we're supposed to believe that the little baby in Mary Parker's belly is Peter Parker bouncing around, they said, or swinging around is what they said. So that's what I hope they don't do. Just give us a Kraven story. You're never going to give us Spider-Man. We know that. Do not gaslight us. Do not give me another trailer that says, oh, it could be Spider-Man might be here. I don't know.
Yeah. I still am baffled at this marketing decision to release these 8 minutes. I don't get it.
It moved really, really fast for 8 minutes. And like, I don't get it. What were we supposed to take from it? Like, he was in jail. Okay. How does he have powers already? Like, how is he a hunter in jail? Or isn't this an origin story?
Maybe we're going to get a flashback after 8 minutes of the movie.
Don't do that. Don't make the whole movie a flashback and we just saw the ending.
Yeah. I don't know how this is going to go, but I don't think it's going to be good. But it's along the all of these Sony Marvel movies, starting with which came out. Did Morbius come out before Let There Be Carnage?
Morbius was after.
Morbius was after. Probably starting with Let There Be Carnage. I went into Let There Be Carnage thinking this could be good. Like, because I liked Venom. It wasn't good per se. I thought but pre Let There Be Carnage, I was like, Woody Harrelson is a weird choice for Carnage. Really weird. I don't get it. But, okay, let's roll with it. Whatever. I love Carnage. So Carnage is one of my favorite like Spider-Man villains. So yeah, Carnage, Venom, awesome. Should be cool. And then it was not good. And it was an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
And part of actually these 8 minutes of Kraven, I mean, you mentioned a few times that it went so fast. That's what it kind of reminded me of is Let There Be Carnage, where it's an hour and a half of like just constant action. Like there's not much story in there. It was just like them fighting the whole time, basically. And that's what this movie might be. It might just be a like I hate going back to the same phrase we've been using, but a generic action movie that there's a lot of action and not much else.
Well, with Let There Be Carnage, I was like, this could be fun. It could be good. And then I saw the runtime and I was like, oh, great.
Yeah,
great.
That's not a
We're
good
screwed. Yeah. So I didn't even see it in theaters. I was like, I'm not even wasting my time on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw it at home, I was like, how dare they do that to me?
Yeah.
That
was rough. So after Let There Be Carnage, after that movie, I was like, okay, these movies are all just trash. Like they're not going to be good anymore. Morbius came out and I was expecting it to be trash. So I actually watched Morbius and I actually enjoyed it because I was looking at it like, one of those, it's like a train wreck. Like you just can't look away. Like it's a horrible thing that you're watching, but you're like, I have to keep watching it. For some reason, this is like, it's drawing it to me and I gotta keep watching it.
With Morbius, I was like, okay, maybe something could be interesting about it. And then they hired Jared Leto. I was like, oh, I hate him. Okay, great. And then I'm always trying to be positive. Like maybe there's something I like. Maybe I like the story. Maybe I like Matt Smith. And then I saw Tom Holland in an interview when he said, well, like Morbius could look, it looks cool. And I was like, oh God, you know more than we do. And I I did not see it till like months after it started streaming. I was like, I know that look, Tom Holland. I know that lie. You're the worst liar.
Tom Holland is not a good liar. No, he's much too wholesome for putting out a good lie.
Yeah, and that's when I was like, he knows so much more than we do about Morbius. So he knows how it sucks.
After that, because my viewpoint had changed, that I knew all of these movies are going to be trash, I actually feel like I was able to enjoy them more because of that. Like I wasn't going in with high expectations of any of these movies. So I guess that's a positive thing to say about them.
I just accepted it. I
just accepted that they were going to be bad.
I just knew I wouldn't enjoy it. So I just went in with no emotions.
Pretty much. Yeah, exactly.
It's like the Fast and Furious movies. You just go in and you're like,
yeah.
I know for a fact I will see a car, and that is all I know.
Ooh, Max is going to be so mad that we compared the Sony's Marvel Universe to the Fast and Furious movies.
Listen, if he cared that much, he would be here to support
that's
his
true.
favorite franchise.
That's true. He's not here. He can't defend it. So
he can't. I mean, I'm sorry, but
no, I think I am right with you. I think that's a fair comparison because I look at the Fast and Furious movies the same way as trash. I would still watch them. They're fun. They're fun movies, but they're garbage. They're not good.
Yeah. I'm up to date on every single one, but I didn't take time out of my day to be like, oh, today's the day I'm going to watch it. It was more like, you know what? Like it's raining outside. There's a lot. There's not. Yeah. I might as well. I'm here. So.
All right. back to Kraven. What would you rate these 8 minutes of Kraven?
Gosh, like a 2.6. Just because I feel like we saw 30 minutes smushed into 8 minutes. And that's the first 8 minutes of the movie. That's how the movie starts. And you're supposed to set a tone, and it didn't.
Yeah.
I still don't know what it's about. I still don't know. Apparently there's a lion in there somewhere. I don't know.
I guess we'll find out.
Guess we will.
I'm with you. I'm going to give it I have a hard time with these things. I'll give it a 3 because I think production still looks good. And I do like Aaron Tyler Johnson, but like, you're totally right. Like, I mean, nothing really changed about my opinion of this movie. I still think it's going to be garbage. So, but I do think, I mean, we'll get into that in a little bit. I mean, there's worse movies. Like, I still think, no, I'm not even going to get into it because we're going to talk about it in a little bit here. We're not going to play the comparison game. 3 out of 6 for the first 8 minutes of Kraven. And the last thing that we're going to do today on this podcast is, sometimes when we have time, we like to give out a top 6 list of something. And today we're going to give our top 6 worst Sony Marvel movies.
We're going in 3, 2,
You're entering the top 6 on the Infinity Bros podcast.
starting now.
Oh boy.
So I'm going to preface this with saying that I have not seen Venom 3 yet. So I did leave it off my list, but I guarantee you that it would be on this list if I had seen it, because I've got 2 on here that probably my nostalgia says that they shouldn't be on here, but I put them on there because technically they are still Sony Marvel movies.
I haven't seen Venom 3 either, so.
Okay. All right, good. I'm in the same boat as you then. Good.
Yeah.
I will see it when it's free and streaming because I don't want to spend money on that.
I wanted to see it because it's like, it's Venom. I mean, I'm not going to like the movie, but I enjoy seeing the character.
Yeah.
And like Joker was streaming digitally like a week after it went into theaters.
True.
So I thought Venom would do the same, but it didn't. So here I am.
Sadly. Yep. Same. I'm in the same exact boat as you. I really would like to see it. And if I had time and went to movies by myself, I probably would have seen it by now. But with all the family stuff going on, it's not one that I'm going to drag my wife to and make her watch. So,
which is fair.
Okay. So top 6 lists. We usually start with our bottom 6 and then work our way up to number 1, or in this case, the worst Sony Marvel movie that we have on our list. So we'll go back and forth. I'll let you go ahead and go first with your number 6.
I'm going to say, I don't know if Ghost Rider 2 is Sony. I think it is.
That's a good question. I don't actually know.
I know Ghost Rider is, but Ghost Rider 2, I don't know.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's Sony. Wow, I might have to. I did not realize it was Sony. I might have to change my list now.
They just had such solid characters they put in that movie, and it just, you didn't have to do that. Even Nick Cage was didn't want to come back for Deadpool and Wolverine as Ghost Rider, and that should tell you something.
That is quite unfortunate. I'm totally stealing that. I'm sorry, because these last 2 that I have on my list should not be on my list. I have nostalgia for them, but I couldn't really bring myself to put anything else on there. So my number 6 is going to be Amazing Spider-Man 2. They did my boy Andrew Garfield dirty in that movie because he is not the problem. He is not the problem. And Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy is also not the problem. They're great chemistry in that, but holy crap, they just tried to cram all the villains into it, and all of the villains were horrible. Horrible Green Goblin. Just so sad that movie had so much potential, and it just, man. Another sad part is that the VFX in that movie still hold up today. It's like incredible how good the VFX are in that. But the story is just awful and the villains are terrible. So that's my number 6.
That's very fair.
Number 5, what you got?
My number 5 was actually The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Nice.
So I love their chemistry. Spider-Man, well, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, I love their chemistry. I'm still pissed they're not together. It's whatever. I'll get over it someday. But it's the villains. It's so bad. And it's like, you guys didn't have to, I'm just going to trail off for a while here. You guys did not have to give us the sound of her head hitting the ground, because that lives rent free in my head.
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's rough.
That thud is just, oh, I think about it a lot. Yeah.
That's rough. Yeah, honestly, like that always brings me back to the comic where I don't think they have a thud of her like head hitting anything, but they have like the snap of her neck, I think, is like a sound, effect in the comic. And
Yeah.
just it gives you the chills or the shudders, like when you think about that. It's like, oh man, that's
Yeah,
rough.
because it's also like, you didn't have to do that. We understood what happened. You didn't have to. We knew.
We knew.
What is your number 5?
My number 5 is Venom,
Oh,
because I still don't think it's a good movie. It definitely, I have more nostalgia for the Spider-Man movies, which is why they're like lower down on my list. But anytime I go back and watch Venom again, I'm just like, man, this is another movie that just had potential. And in and of itself, it's not a terrible movie, but there's just so much more that they could have done with it. And the fact that a Venom origin story without Spider-Man just doesn't work for me. I can't do it. Tom Hardy, I mean, we've already talked about him. He does the best that he can with his role in those movies. So give him his credit, but it's just not it for me. So Venom is my number 5.
that's fair.
What is your number 4?
Okay, Tom Holland's my favorite Spider-Man, and I've watched this movie so many times I can't even tell you, but Spider-Man Homecoming. I love him as Spider-Man, but it's like, I hate the young Aunt May. I feel like the music didn't make any sense in the movies. They try to make it too light and airy and fluffy. It's just, it felt like too much. It was too focused on like his time at school or all this stuff that I wanted to see more of him. I want to see him like practicing being Spider-Man, coming into being Spider-Man himself. That's what I want. And also the Iron Man mentoring thing has always irritated me. I want
That
Spider-Man
also
on his
irritates
own.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want him to be mentored. Then you had Nick Fury, I guess, in the mentor role. Then you had Mysterio. Then you had Happy. Let my boy be on his own 2 feet. Come on now.
And I guess I'm excited to see that in Spider-Man 4 if that's what's happening truly, because we've heard so many rumors about like and again, we have not seen Venom 3, but there's a ton of stuff floating around about like Null coming to the MCU, Venom potentially coming to the
Yeah.
MCU, blah blah blah, all that stuff floating around. But man, just let him be himself and do street level stuff for a while. Like that's when Spider-Man's at his best,
It's not going to be street level for Spider-Man 4 because it comes.
It's so sad.
It's between Doomsday and Secret Wars.
Yeah.
So it's
you're right.
like, you bastards.
They have to just insert all this cosmic and world altering stuff in that. And it's like, and Spider-Man can help in that situation, but that's just not where he belongs. He doesn't belong saving the universe,
He's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Let him be.
He belongs
that.
like helping, old ladies cross the road and like beating down the street level thugs and stuff like that. Like that's where he does his best work. Just let him do his thing.
Agreed. So, what is your number 4?
I had to insert Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider 2 in this because I don't know if you know this, but I'm a big Nicolas Cage fan, and I recently rewatched both Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider 2, and Ghost Rider's not bad. It's like fun. It's like those early 2000s Marvel movies vibes. So it's got a lot of fun things going for it, and they just totally like went in a way different direction for Ghost Rider 2, and it just, man, it ruins that whole first movie. There's some weird quirky stuff about Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider, don't get me wrong, but the direction they took Ghost Rider 2 was just so weird and different and out of character. And the filmmaking was so weird in Ghost Rider 2 as well. It's just a weird movie, man. It's one of those movies again that like you can watch as a train wreck movie and like it's kind of funny to watch, but it's definitely not good. So that definitely makes my list. And I didn't even realize it was Sony, so that's why I had to steal yours.
It's fair. Ghost Rider, the first one is, I think it was ahead of its time. So I don't think it was well received. All right. So my number 3, I believe, I'm at Venom, because I do love Tom Hardy as Venom. He's the one that made the movie great. They tried very hard, but why would you make a Venom movie PG-13? It could have been something way different if it was rated R. And that is the one character that should be rated R.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It definitely should have been rated R. I mean, I feel like they definitely pushed that PG-13, but if they had just went and made it R, they could have had a lot more freedom to do, differently directions and choices they could have made for sure. So I definitely agree with that. My number 3 is Venom Let There Be Carnage, because that was a train wreck. So we already talked about that a little bit. Woody Harrelson, why? I still don't understand that casting. It's weird.
I liked him as Carnage, because I was like, it's weird. Carnage.
That's
is
true.
Weird.
He did play creepy really well. And that is something that, Carnage has an element of, but like, I don't know. The vibes were so weird to me. And I just was like, this is weird. I don't know
movie,
why. The whole movie.
is weird.
Yeah. The whole movie is just weird. They're like, all right, well, let's just let them fight it out and call it a day. So just let it be Carnage in a nutshell. What's your number 2?
Madam Web. I don't think they tried much at any point in this movie, but I think the stars tried. I think they were done dirty. First of all, the main villain, his mouth doesn't even track with the words. So
that irritated me so much.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what the heck is going on here?
It was so annoying. And like, it didn't make any sense. The story didn't make any sense. It never explained, okay, but why do you have to kill these girls? Why are they taking something from you? It never explained it. Never explained, like, so these girls just all randomly have powers and know each other. Like, half the movie is missing, I feel like.
It definitely feels like that. Oh, Madam Web is horrible. But my number 2 is actually Morbius.
Oh.
I don't know. It's really the first movie that I just accepted that this movie is going to be bad in the like the Sonyverse or whatever they're calling it these days. I was like, this is going to be bad. And it was bad. Like you said, the first scene where he's in the cave, nothing to do with the rest of the movie. I think the joke in that seals it for me is when he's like, we are Venom. And I'm like, dude, you're just making a joke about how bad this whole franchise is. Like, it's just so stupid and it does not work at all. I will say the like VFX weren't terrible and it was watchable in that sense. Like it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's not great. And that's one that the only way I would rewatch it is if I was in like a party setting with a bunch of people and we're making fun of it. That's the only way I would rewatch it.
That's fair. I'd say that's very fair.
Mm-hmm. What is your number 1 worst Sony Marvel movie?
I'm sure you think it's going to be Morbius, but I have disassociated with that part of my life so hard. I forgot that movie existed when I made this. Made this list.
That's also fair.
So, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage.
I mean, that's honestly a solid pick for number 1 because it's very bad.
Yeah, I like the characters so much, but it's like you threw so much into one movie that you gave us half a movie in runtime. And like, after I watched it, I don't even know what happened. I just kind of sat there like, what did I just watch. And I have not watched it again because I'm not over it yet.
Still a little sour about it for sure.
A little bit. Yeah.
My number one is Madam Web. So that's why I didn't go into detail on that, because
Fair.
this is one of the first like superhero movies that irks me. I will say the 2015 Fantastic Four, I loathe. I hate that movie so much. But this is one of the more recent ones that I'm like, I hate this movie. This is such a bad movie. And the way they marketed it is the thing that really upset me, because the big thing about Madam Web in the marketing was they're all Spider Women wearing all these cool suits, which they were cool. And then we got a future vision of them wearing the suits for like 8 seconds in the movie. And that was it. Like, we got all of that footage in all of the marketing they did. Oh, that made me mad. That made me really mad, because you're trying to market this as a Spider-Man, IP movie, and then you gave us whatever the heck we got. And you already mentioned it too. Like, it just made zero sense. The villain is somehow forgettable and horrible. Like, usually if you have a horrible villain, they're memorable, right? Like, because they're so bad that you remember them. They're forgettable and horrible at the same time. The voice matching thing too. And this is the thing where I get into, like, most movies are watchable these days because they look good. Like, yeah, the story's probably crap, but like, if you can sit down and watch a generic action movie like Kraven, you can watch most movies these days. Mm-hmm. And when they're doing the voiceover for the villain, it sounds so out of place. Anytime he's off camera and speaking, it's just like, what is happening right now? Like, is he like right in their ear talking at them? Like, what is going on? So production wise, it wasn't great either. And that's where it's like, man, if you're bad story wise and production wise, I can't get over that movie. So Madam Web that's on my list of like worst superhero movies ever. I despise that movie.
And we've edited videos and podcasts before. We know what it looks like when the raw audio is off from a video.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it was hard to fix it, because it does look like that it was off the entire movie.
Yeah, like for a production that cost, I believe it was like over $100 million. Like, you think somebody in post-production would be like, hey, we should probably fix this because it looks horrible.
Yeah.
But I guess they were just like, nah, this movie sucks. We're not going to fix it.
That's what they are like on every single one. And also, Dakota Johnson was so creepy at the end when she's like, my girls. And you're like, you've known them for like a week. Stop.
Really
That's weird.
Yeah, the whole movie was just weird.
Just so weird. Yeah.
Bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of very few movies, because I watch, like I said, I'm a Nicolas Cage fan, so I watch a lot of bad movies. And Madam Web is one that makes me actively upset. So there you go.
Yeah, it just felt like a ton of gaslighting from Sony, and just a slap in the face of the characters. And I freaking love Madam Web in the comics. So it's like,
yeah, she's a great character.
She's a strong character. And you guys did that? How dare you?
Yeah, very sad. Anyways. Well, Megan, thank you so much. We are running out of time here, but would you be able to give us just a quick blurb of where we can find you on the interwebs?
Yes, if you can look up Vigilante Vibes Podcast really anywhere, and I will pop up. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky. Not Twitter for much longer. I'm still kind of titter-tattering on that. Facebook, all the big ones. You'll find me.
Yeah, and we'll definitely throw some links in the show notes so you guys can check out Megan and the Vigilante Vibes podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today, Megan. It's been a pleasure.
It's been so much fun. We should do it again.
Absolutely, we should. So stay tuned, Infinity Bros Universe, for more collaborative opportunities between the Infinity Bros and the Vigilante Vibes podcast.
Yes.
All right. Well, listeners, wherever you're listening, however you're listening, thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast experience. We love you 3000. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at The Infinity Bros. Hey, you can also check out our website at theinfinitybros.com for links, reviews, and that sweet merch. Feel free to send listener feedback via social media or email us at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.